RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, the 6th of August, 2025, and this is program number 1421 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, in addition to our Facebook Live feed. Of course, you can, we do have Facebook Live feed, I should say. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. We also have streaming on our website, that is rcistlucia.com. And of course, hello to all our regular listeners on our radio FM frequency 101.1 FM. Now, we want to send some birthday greetings today. A pretty long list of persons celebrating their birthdays today. First, sending out birthday greetings to Monsignor Dr. Patrick Angus Butcher Anthony, Paba as he's known, to very many all around St. Lucia and the world, I would also say. And we want to wish him an absolutely wonderful birthday celebration. And also, I think it's his the ordination. It's also the anniversary of his priestly ordination. So we're wishing him the very, very best on this very wonderful day for him. I also want to send out birthday greetings to the Honorable Richard Frederick, our island's Minister for Housing and Local Government, and also the MP for Castries Central. And wishing him a wonderful birthday and hope he's enjoying it. I know he's got an event coming up, which he's looking forward to on Friday, the opening of a plaza extension adjacent to the Castries Market. But I'm sure he'll already be celebrating from today. So wishing him a wonderful birthday celebration. Also sending birthday greetings out to my very good friend, Mr. Richard Marta over in Canada. Happy birthday to you, Richard. And hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Also celebrating her birthday today is Juanita Sexius, once indeed a member of staff here at Radio Caribbean International, and wishing her a wonderful birthday indeed. Also a big birthday shout out to Maya Seaflay. And of course, Maya's just had a very long season, and her band Zuvo has done exceptionally well this year. Making some remarkable achievements in terms of crossing that 2,000 mark, almost 2,300 revelers plus on the road this year. So hopefully she'll be getting some much needed rest and relaxation for her birthday. Happy birthday to you, Maya. Wishing you a fantastic day. Also want to send out birthday greetings to Tonton Hackshaw. Happy birthday to you, Anthony. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration on your very, very special day. And also celebrating her birthday today, Miss Tara Ira. Happy birthday to you, and we're wishing you a wonderful birthday as well. I look back in time on this day, and definitely one of the most important events in history happening on this day was the first time an atomic bomb was used against a population, and that happened in 1945 during World War II, where an atomic bomb was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, and that was by the US B-29 superfortress, the Enola Gay was the name of that airplane. In the year 1965, on this day, the United States President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, prohibiting voting discrimination against minorities. And in 1991, on this day, Tim Berners-Lee released files describing his idea for the World Wide Web and debuted the www as a publicly available service on the internet. And we now head across to our dish of the day.
This has been
Okay, sorry about that, Veritas. Of course, that dish of the day is being brought to us through the kind compliments of Tiles Plus, and we do hope that we can get that at some point and we get that ad in. But
one tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also black, that's why and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grozile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
yes, and welcome back to our dish of the day. Before we actually start, just to make mention that we're supposed to be getting a call in from Republic Bank. It is Wednesday. It's a Republic Corner, and we're hoping that we can get that in today. We're looking forward to having that chat, speaking about some of the additional benefits and campaigns that the Republic Bank is running, and in particular one called I Deposit, and it equals 3 rewards. So we're hoping to get that in at some point during the program. But in the meantime, the matter, of course, of travel to the world's most powerful country, the United States of America, is one that we were discussing yesterday, and noting, of course, the number of changes that appear to be being made to provide, one can say, a more robust system of immigration control, passport control, and prevention of illegal immigration. That, of course, has been a major one could say campaign agenda for the Republican Party, and in particular Mr. Donald Trump. And it has been an issue, of course, of concern in the United States for some time, the matter of persons staying illegally in the United States. Now, there are a lot of people, of course, who come into the United States illegally, and that is without any form of proper documentation by way of visas or authorization that would permit them to come into the country. And of course, we've seen the major challenges on particularly the southern border of the United States of America, the U.S.-Mexico border, stretching from Texas all the way across to Tijuana, on the border of Tijuana in California, the section of California bordering Tijuana, I should say. And of course, it has been subject to lots of interest and proposals for building walls and all sorts of other means to try to prevent individuals from being able to walk across or cross the Rio Grande and get into the United States of America. And of course, that has been something that largely we've seen lots of people coming out of Central America and trekking across Mexico and trying to get in via that route. But of course, there have been many others from around the world who also try to do just that. They get into Mexico somehow and then they try to do this crossing. But there are a lot of other people, of course, who they fly in. They get to the United States by plane, and they're getting there with a visa, an approved visa. So they go through the process of applying for a visa, and they are accepted, and they decide that instead of returning to their country of origin, they decide to what is termed overstay. And of course, they effectively want to integrate into the American society. Of course, that is illegal, and it is a matter that has been of concern over the years. Of course, this issue of overstaying one's visa, chances are you probably won't get that visa renewed again. And so it becomes, of course, an area where legislators have had a lot of interest in that entire matter. And it's subject to the oversight of the Department of Homeland Security. You recall that department was created after the 9/11 bombings by President George Bush at the time, and he created this entity which was meant to strengthen what other countries sometimes call the internal Department of the Interior. Of course, in the case of the United States, they do have a Department of the Interior, but it actually deals not with home affairs or internal matters, but land management and other things like that. And so they've created this Homeland Security Department, and that's under which the U.S. Customs and Border Protection actually falls. So it would appear every year they publish a report which is sent to Congress entitled the Entry, Exit, Overstay Report. And of course, that is per their legislation requiring this type of reporting. And it is seemed to be one of the measures in which the United States is looking at the efficacy of its visa program and its how well these controls work. And of course, countries all around the world are looking at these issues as to when and where to apply visas and when to provide visa waivers. And the U.S. does have a number of countries where it waives the visas for nationals coming from those countries, not requiring a visa for leisure and business travel, that sort of thing. Mostly European countries, but as well some countries in Asia, the likes of Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, for example, are not requiring visas to enter the United States. But of course, for the vast majority of the rest of the world, the 160 or so countries that don't find themselves on that, of course, that list, they require visas for entry into the United States of America. So Central and South America and the Caribbean and Africa, in the main, of course, a lot of Asian countries as well, they require visas. And so, of course, the issue has always been a very topical one, even in the politics right here in St. Lucia. You recall some years back in the lead up to the 2016 general election here in St. Lucia, the current leader of the opposition, the Honorable Alan Shastney, effectively said or suggested that there would be coming a time when St. Lucians won't require a visa to come to go to the United States, suggesting that there was going to be some visa waiver for St. Lucian nationals. Now, of course, he did try to backtrack, and others have tried to suggest that he never really meant it that way, and that somehow it was suggesting that life here in St. Lucia would be so good that nobody would actually want to leave St. Lucia to head to the United States to live. Now, of course, a visa, and this is again the issue there, a visa does not permit you to go live in the United States of America. It merely allows one to go to travel there for a particular purpose. And so the matter of immigration is still very much front and center for the Trump administration. And they certainly want to be seen to be acting and taking a hard stance on a lot of issues related to immigration and where persons perceive there is a need for tightening on these matters. So, of course, we did see in circulation the suggestion first a couple of weeks back that the United States was going to introduce a $250 integrity fee, a visa integrity fee. So all persons applying for visas all around the world, right? So this is not just here in the Caribbean or here in St. Lucia, but around the world, persons applying for visas would have to pay this additional $250 up on top of whatever you were paying for a visa. And the idea then, as it was explained, is that this would be reimbursable. It would be a sort of a deposit, a $250 deposit, which somehow once you come to the end, I suppose, of your visa period, you would maybe 5-10 years later, you would have to go through the process of trying to recover that deposit. Of course, lots of people raise concerns about it, and effectively it would simply be, for all intents and purposes, just an increase in the cost of a visa, which would have meant that I think already you would be paying over $100 for a visa application. You'd add on top of that, and you'd obviously be looking at a very tidy sum of about 1,000 EC dollars for a visa application, without, of course, any guarantee that you would in fact be accepted. So that was one initiative, and then very recently we saw another initiative being announced, and that matter dealt with the issue of providing a visa bond. And in fact, even before that, you may recall that there was this whole issue of travel bans, right? So the travel ban period, so to speak, was out and about, and we were hearing about the U.S. Potentially placing bans on different countries, and we saw lists being circulated from the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and others, suggesting that up to 60 countries may very well face travel bans to the United States of America. And thankfully, of course, that did not come to pass, at least not into the extent of what was being suggested in those articles. But then, in addition to, but in effect, at the end of the day, there were about 12 countries which, in fact, did face these stricter travel requirements. And those included countries like Haiti. Some had partial as well, I should also mention. Another 7 had partial bans. But countries like Haiti, Djibouti, Eritrea, a number of African countries ended up being put on this list of countries where there would be outright bans for travel. And now, the latest in the attempt seemed to have been that of placing a bond on persons who travel to the United States, who are now seeking visas to travel to the United States, that they would have to potentially pay for up to $15,000 US for travel to the United States. And this would be kind of like your insurance in the event that you somehow default or overstay here, over in the United States of America. Of course, that caused a lot of worry and consternation for persons hearing that because of the possibility that it may be placed on countries here in the Caribbean. And in fact, one could say even there was quite a lot being played up in terms of the politics of it. And persons I even saw posting on social media calling for the head of the Prime Minister over the matter. Others were claiming that this had been had already been approved and we were going to be seeing it soon. A lot of concerns being raised. People, I even received some messages asking, have you heard about this and what's going on there? Playing up on this fear regarding this matter of this proposed initiative by the U.S. State Department. Then we were told from the release itself that it was going to be a pilot program, and that the program would in fact be for a 12-month period, and that it would be targeting 3 classes of situations of 1, countries that have high overstay rates; 2, countries that have difficulty in terms of the veracity of their travel documentation. And you'd recall some years back, and this is something that perhaps we should go down that road a little bit, because there's been some comments about the whole issue of the 10-year passport. You recall sometime back in 2007 that there was a decision by the then King administration to move towards machine-readable passports. And the issue at the time especially was that we still had a somewhat antiquated form of handling of our passports. Some of them were in fact still, of course, handwritten. Your name would be written in. This information would be, that's how it would be imputed into the onto the document. It could not be read by a machine as a result of that. So there were a lot of challenges with respect to our passports in the past. And in fact, there was pressure placed upon the country to, modernize our passports, the actual physical document, and as well, of course, the back end in terms of the database and the security features for our passports. And remember, that took a while, right? And there was a whole process of phasing out those passports, which I think went up to probably into like 2013 or 2014. We were still dealing with that issue of some people still having old passports, right? A lot of them would have had these 10-year passports, for example. So even though the decision would have been taken in 2007, somebody might still have had a passport in 2014 that was valid and could be utilized in these old passports. And so that was a whole process of phasing out. And during that period of time, we also shifted to a 5-year passport. And so then the next phase, of course, came much later on now. By the 2020s now, not only was it just about having a passport that was machine readable, but really having an e-passport, an electronic passport, a passport that actually was able to have information embedded in it, that was able to store and really be a much more modern passport with newer security features and whatnot. Of course, all this being done by the same company that produces our currency, our notes here in the Eastern Caribbean, company by the name of Canadian Bank Note. Now, that eventually got rolled out. And so, of course, now, just as of yesterday, the government has now shifted from allowing a 5-year passport to a 10-year passport. So certainly the issue of the issues with the veracity of passports and documents, that is, I would say it's certainly a thing of the past in terms of St. Lucia. We have a pretty modern passport system. But of course, the other aspect that they were actually mentioning within that release was the possibility as well of countries where individuals have citizenship by investment, have gained passports through citizenship by investment, and without having gone through a residency requirement. Now, that of course is something that even right now, a number of the countries of the Eastern Caribbean are working towards creating new legislation, amending the legislation, and that is one of the provisions being looked at, requiring individuals to have some level of residency. And of course, you get a green card, you're expected to stay in the United States for a period of time. The same if you get citizenship in In Canada, you're expected to spend 6 months or whatever period of time on that island. And the idea is that you should have some presence in that regard. I think it's actually a pretty good thing if our programs move in that direction. It may seem for some to make it a little bit less attractive, but I think it actually ensures that the country benefits more instead of just this one-off transaction. Yeah, you're getting citizenship, thank you, and that's it. There's actually some real connection and sustainability in terms of that type of relationship through gaining of citizenship. But be that as it may, even so, one should also point out that even in those types of instances, it's not clear in terms of the language that was utilized whether this would be applied principally to persons themselves who were naturalized through a CBI, and whether that would be applied for those people in particular, and not necessarily all the individuals coming in, from that country. But I did find it interesting, of course, the matter of overstaying of visas being raised. And so I did go looking for that fiscal report, so that report on entry-exit overstaying from the year 2023. And it was actually published the anniversary of publication was yesterday, August the 5th, 2024. This report was sent to the respective committee in the U.S. Congress on the matter. And of course, it details effectively what is the state of play for the United States in general, and points out that in that year there were probably well over 39 million people who entered the United States of America, and so therefore, on a visa, and so therefore there were 39 million expected departures, and so they went through a very detailed analysis. And the long and short of it is that in terms of people who remain in the United States after getting a visa, after they should have left, at the point where they should have left, it works out to be about 1%. Right? Just to read from page Roman numerals 4, it says, the resulting in the suspected in-country overstay rate of 1.02%. So as of May 1st, 2024, the Department of Homeland Security was able to confirm the departures or adjustments of status of more than 98.98% of non-immigrants scheduled to depart in the year 2023. And so that just gives you a sense of the numbers. Now, under the visa waiver program, remember I said there were about 42 or so countries that don't actually require visas in that category. So these are people who might be coming from Europe and Taiwan and Japan, Singapore, and wherever else, Australia, and there are about 16 million of those persons who traveled to the United States in that year 2023. And the suspected in-country overstay rate was 0.62%. So less than 1% of persons coming from those countries, in fact, were overstaying, 0.62%. And from non-visa waiver countries, right, of the 9.8 million people coming from those countries, the suspected overstay rate was 3.2%, right? So when you balance it out, of course, because you have far more people coming from the visa waiver countries, right? Europe and Australia, New Zealand, Japan, right? So over 2/3 of that, roughly about that is coming from those countries. So you have a larger proportion there, and the rate is smaller. So when you really average it all out, it works out to be about 1% overall. But from these countries that have a visa waiver program, the rate is 0.62%. And for countries that have a which don't have that visa program, which require visas basically, the rate is 3.2%. And of course, you may be interested to find out, well, what is St. Lucia's rate? And according to this report, we are somewhere about, well, in fact, before I give you that figure, just to say that there are about 13,442 St. Lucians who traveled to the United States and were expected to leave, and a total of 264 were found to have overstayed. So of the 13,000 St. Lucians who traveled to the United States, about 264 overstayed in total, and 18 of those eventually left, right? So the actual number that is believed to have remained in the United States beyond that period of up to 2024 was 246. So that works out to be a visa overstay rate of 1.83%. Of course, there are many other countries on that list which we can talk of that have far higher rates. Jamaica, for example, 5.11% is their overstay rate. You've got countries like Guyana, 5.39% is the overstay rate there. The Dominican Republic, 4.52%. Countries like Haiti's got a very high overstay rate of about 31%. Basically, nearly 1 in 3 Haitians that's heading to the United States seems to be overstaying. But we'll get into those figures a little bit more because we're actually due for our weather break. So we take that in at this time.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Jugosile, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Beaufort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between east and north and east-northeast near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour. Weather, fair skies becoming occasionally cloudy with a few showers. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few brief scattered showers. And your tropical weather outlook. The Atlantic high pressure system will maintain light to moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Patches of low-level cloud drifting along the wind flow will cause occasional showers over the portion of the Lesser Antilles during this forecast period. A tropical wave in the eastern Atlantic has a moderate chance of becoming a tropical depression later this week or over the weekend as it moves north westward.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
At Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, we were just discussing the matter of that a bit of a scare, I suppose, for some people, and the issue of visas and visa bonds to the United States of America. And of course, lots of people right now perhaps are not even thinking about heading to the United States of America. Certainly, if you're in Brazil, that may not even be an option for you for some time, because we're seeing quite a lot of back and forth regarding the matter of relations between Presidents Lula and Trump. And of course, it has led to some very difficult times in terms of trade between those two giants. The United States looking to apply one of the highest rates on Brazil in terms of tariffs, which should have started on August the 5th. And countries like, here in the Caribbean, I think we're still in that 10% bracket, but we don't really export that much to the United States in any case. But countries like Mexico, 30%. They're looking at, in Canada, 35% tariffs. Much of Europe is eyeing about 15%. The likes of the United Kingdom and Australia are hoping to get that 10% tariff, which is one of the lowest that he's looking at. China, 30% tariff. Japan, and South Korea, 15% tariffs there. India, Kazakhstan, and others in Vietnam looking at a 25% tariff. But there are some countries that clearly he has taken aim at, and Brazil is one of them. And he has slapped a 50% tariff on Brazil, and it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. Of course, Brazil being the largest economy by quite a distance in Latin America, and certainly it'll be difficult to see how that continues to pan out in terms of a very export commodity dependent economy like Brazil. But as well, the issue of even travel is another one that seems to be coming up. And of course, with the Trump administration, they've not had any issue mixing the issues, so to speak, between whether we were talking about whatever it is, whether it's trade or whether it's immigration, it's all lumped together in terms of a response. But of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, you're free to do so. The number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. Just wanted to continue going through that list just out of a point of interest regarding the issue of overstays. And just for comparison, the two countries that actually were listed yesterday in that release coming out of the U.S. authorities were that of Malawi and Zambia. And both of those countries are Southern African countries and are, I guess you could say, don't have very high GDP per capita rates. So they are considered low-income countries. And they don't really see that much travel to the United States in any case, right? In that very same year in question, the number of persons, and I'm trying to get that list right. So the number of persons coming out of Zambia in that year, in the year 2023, was 3,493. All right. In terms, and these are of course persons who are just coming in on non-immigrant B1, B2 visas. All right. So 3,493, and the number of persons coming out of Malawi in that very same year was 1,655. So there were in fact more St. Lucians who went to the United States in 2023 than there were persons from Malawi and Zambia combined. So about 5,000 in total there. And they have relatively high rates in terms of their overstay rates. Well, relatively speaking, kind of high. In the case of Malawi, 14%. And in the case of Zambia, 10.5%, but certainly not the highest by a stretch. And there were many, many other countries out there which had pretty high or even higher rates that have not found themselves in that categorization of requiring these visa bonds. Togo, for example, a West African country there, 18% overstay rate. You had other countries, Mauritania, pretty high, 13%. A lot of African countries, pretty high. Liberia, for example, a very long-standing relationship between the United States and Liberia. That country being created by descendants of enslaved persons from the United States, with a 18.6% overstay rate there. Of course, as we mentioned, Haiti as well. Others, Equatorial Guinea, 20% overstay rate. Congo, Brazzaville, 29% overstay rate. Chad, 48% overstay rate. So a lot of countries there. And so it wasn't pretty clear why Malawi and why Zambia were the two countries that seemed to have been chosen. And one wonders if it was just as a result of some sort of, drop in the hat or pulling it out of the hat and say, hey, well, we need to pick two countries. We just picked these two. A little bit strange, though, for those countries, and a little unfortunate, of course, in that regard. So, of course, that may be as a result of some pushback, some people suggesting that, hey, this isn't really easy and sensible to achieve, and so let's not do it. But then somebody might have said, well, you know what, we do have to show something And so, of course, they decided to just go with maybe 2 countries. Will we see an expansion of this? Well, it's left to be seen. We'll have to wait and see how that also continues to pan out. Now, onto the matter of communism. And what is communism? And that term has been bandied about quite a bit. And there'll be some people who tell you that there never really has been a truly communist country in the world, even though, of course, there have been many countries that have been labeled as communist, maybe not in the true sense of the meaning of communism. But, of course, when we do think about it, we quite often think of the likes of Cuba, the likes of the former USSR, the likes of China, the likes of Vietnam, North Korea, those countries, Laos, I believe, Myanmar, those countries have been some of the countries that have been considered to be communist over the years. Of course, there was a very strong also communist bent at some point in time for some countries in Eastern Europe, and of course East Germany, that period of time too, before the unification, was considered a communist country. But we certainly are living in a pretty different time. And one we can say in one end of the spectrum, you've got one of the most successful countries in the world right now, certainly, has to be China. And although, like I said, it's not a purely, truly communist country in that the tenets of communism are not practiced to that extent. But of course, it is run by the Communist Party of China, and it is for a lot of, well, some people will say it's not truly a one-party state, but for all intents and purposes, it's sort of a one-party state. And so it has some of the elements that one would associate with a potential communist state. But of course, things have changed tremendously in China. And China it seems to be pretty market-driven, of course, since a significant, extensive amount of reforms that occurred in China during the 1990s, which allowed it to encourage lots of foreign direct investment, which allowed it to grow. And of course, today, it is a leader in nearly every field and sector that you can imagine. World's leader in high-speed rail, world's leader in electric vehicle production, world's leader in nearly every agricultural product that you can imagine, world's leader in energy output, world's leader in manufacturing output. You go on and you go on and you go on, and China is certainly up there as a very successful, quote-unquote, communist country. And then, of course, do we classify countries that are social democratic in their general leaning and bent as being communist? I don't know. I mean, you've got countries that very much pride themselves on certain things that are seen to be associated with sometimes communist countries, the likes of free healthcare, the likes of free education, free university education, free childcare, social benefit systems, various housing benefits, and when you look at a lot of Europe, it's not communist, but it is. It runs on a social bent, a very strong bent on providing a deep set of social services and social safety nets. And guess what? When we look at some of the wealthiest countries in the world, a lot of those countries are, in fact, what you might want to call social countries or socialist countries, or provide a significant amount of social safeguards that really might suggest that they might be communist leading, but of course they're not really communist. And so when we think about the Scandinavian countries, the Nordic countries, the likes of Finland and Denmark and Norway and Sweden and Iceland, and then of course even some of the European countries as well, very strong bent towards social services as well. But we're not calling them communist countries. So it was a little strange that we're still hearing, coming from newer politicians in the mix, this idea that St. Lucia is right now leaning towards becoming a communist country, or that there are policies that are suggestive of a communist country. I think it's a little bit unclear, and I think it's unfounded. Furthermore, I mean, the argument that you see issues of freedom of speech or freedom of expression being challenged is another one that it's a little bit strange in that regard. I think we still have a pretty free and open media space that whether you're leaning on one side or the other, you can speak your mind, and there's no limit towards that. We're still seeing quite a lot that within that sense that allows people to express themselves openly in terms of there's no censorship of social media. It's a pretty free space in that regard. So again, that suggestion is very different. I mean, in the United States of America, we have, which is supposed to be one of the freest countries in the world, we're seeing lots of suggestions right now that people are questioning, about the government and attempts to rail in on the academic freedoms at universities right now. That's a big issue in the United States of America. So to suggest that this is, that in our setting, that there's some sort of hallmark in terms of communism and control of speech is not quite accurate. And when we think about it too, some of the most propaganda-driven, censor-driven entities in the world have been fascist countries as well, right? So the Nazis were fascist. They were right-wing. They were not communists. They loathed the communists, and the same as a Mussolini and a Franco. So again, those notions, I think, are sometimes used from one side to label the other side and to somehow make it seem as if there's some means by which this one entity is engaging in nefarious activities or the other. But it's an interesting conversation, though, and one maybe we can try to delve into tomorrow on the whole idea of what is communism, what is social democracy, or what is socialism, what is capitalism, and is there even any of that in terms of the parties that we have right now, and do they truly line up? What is the United Workers' Party's ideological underpinning at this time? How would it characterize itself? And the same, of course, for the St. Lucia Labour Party. How would it characterize itself? So we'll have that conversation, hopefully, on another program of the Lunchroom, because we're out of time at this point here today. We do hope you had a good one. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.
RCI 101.1 FM. 101.1 FM.
Look on the brighter side. Caribbean LED lighting.
Did you know lumens measures the brightness of a bulb? More lumens means brighter lights.
Caribbean LED lighting gives you longer lasting LED lighting that's even brighter.